Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Ed Davis from System Support Group. Um, Glad you were able to make the webinar this morning, especially on a holiday weekend. Lots of time people like to get away early. Instead, we're learning something new, hopefully. So what we're going to go through today is Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has been around for quite a while, but as you'll see in a slide, a couple slides in, um, it's really gotten a lot of usage over the last 18 months, 17 months. With the advent of COVID, applications like Microsoft Teams and Zoom and others have really taken off, and the usage has just gone crazy. Uh, some of that is because of the work from home, and we do a lot of seminars and webinars that just address the work from home environment. So with Microsoft Teams, you're able to do a bunch of things that actually help out with your work from home situations. So we'll go through that today. What we're going to do this morning is I don't know, half dozen or eight slides, and then we're just going to go right into Teams. And I'm going to show you how to get around and what the features and functions are. And as I said, if you have questions during the session, you can put your questions in the chat um, area, and you can find that by clicking on the icon that looks like a conversation. I won't. It's just me here, so I will be checking those, and I'll answer them as we go along. So our agenda for today is going to be, you know, without the electronic part of it, without the technology part of it, what are teams? We're going to discuss a little bit, talk a little bit about what teams actually are. And then we'll talk about what Microsoft Teams is. And then we'll do we'll get into an actual team application, and we'll go through all of the different things you can do in there. And then we can do questions throughout, as I said. For those of you that just joined, I wanted to just let you know that we are recording the session, so just be aware of that. So, what is a team? We've all been on or involved with teams for our whole lives, probably. There's sports teams, there's military teams, classrooms, teachers as teams. The finance department could be a team. The marketing department could be a team. You have projects that could be teams, your own family. Recently, Microsoft released Microsoft Teams for families, and so a lot of the stuff that you're seeing today is in Microsoft Teams for families, as well as some other things. We're not going to get into that too deeply today, but what Microsoft Teams for families is to basically treat the family as a team, and all your family members can join and share documents and have conversations, etc. Um, so those are different types of teams. When you're using Microsoft Teams, depending on what type of team you have, if you're a sports team, you can use it in different methods, or use different modules, or use them in different ways. If you're a marketing department, you'd have a team, and you'd have your own workspace for that for the marketing department. Maybe you're working on a project and you have a dozen people or 50 people or 10,000 people on the project. You can create a team for that. And as you'll see as we go through this, you'll be able to keep your documents in there. You'll be able to discuss things in there. You'll be able to do schedules, etc. So Teams is very fluent in that there's a bunch of modules that come with Teams, and then you can also plug other things in that are either purchased products or just other Microsoft products. And I'll show you some of that when we actually do the demonstration. As I said, we've all probably been involved with Teams throughout our life here and there. And Teams always have challenges. Sometimes there's unclear goals. People don't know what's going on. Keeping everybody on the same page, being able to share information with everyone at the same time, and potentially being able to work on that information, whether it be documents, et cetera, all at the same time as well. Um, how do we find the current information for the team? What's, where's the latest stuff? Lots of times teams, especially if they're a little bit larger, can be working in silos. So you can't, people don't have access to all the information of the team. um, the other thing is with teams, you're always, you have meetings, you get together and you discuss what's going on. And sometimes managing those meetings and getting people together can be a challenge. And the other is keeping everyone engaged with the team. When you have a team and you're working on, if it's a project or whatever it might be, sometimes it's hard because you can't stay together. You're not communicating all the time. It's hard to keep everyone engaged with the teams. The last item here I've added to the slides just in the last few months, which is work from home. A lot of us, because of COVID, have had to switch over either all or some of our workforce to be working from home. And how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them informed of what's going on? So those are some of the challenges that normal teams have. And what Microsoft Teams has been designed to do is try to address those challenges. So what is Microsoft Teams? Basically, a lot of the functionality of Teams was already in the Microsoft Office 365 suite of products. As far as storing files and things, you could do that before. But what Teams does is it puts a little bit of a front end on all of it, and it actually is a chat-based collaboration tool, and you'll see that when we do the actual demo. It provides global, remote, and dispersed teams with the ability to work together and share information. This is kind of important because, as we said when we were talking about the teams, those are some of the challenges that teams have. How do you keep everybody together and feed the information to everyone that they need at the right time? How do you communicate, et cetera? And that's what Microsoft Teams allows you to do. And there's some pretty neat things you can do in there. You can do document collaboration, which basically means you can have more than one person working on a document within the Teams environment at the same time, and you can actually see what their changes are, and you can actually, while you're working on a document, actually have a chat session and be talking about the document either electronically, or you can also do um, audio and or video chats while you're working on the documents as well. So you'll see that as we go through the different modules. And the important thing here is that Microsoft Teams, if you have Office 365, which has kind of been renamed now to Microsoft 365, in most of the subscriptions, you already have Microsoft Teams. It's actually part of your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription. The Teams components, and these are actually changing as we speak. But right now, the components that we have is we have chat, and you'll see during the demonstration, you can do a one-on-one chat. So you could just chat with one person at a time, just like you would do texting on a phone. The difference, though, is that these chats are persistent; they stay, and so that if people need to go back and look at something later, they can see that. So the one-to-one chat would just be, one person to one person. But you can also have one-to-many chats. So for instance, here at System Support Group, I've created a group chat, which is all of our service engineers. And so we can communicate all together within that chat environment. And you'll see what I mean when we go through the demo. There's actually a Teams workspace. Marketing for Microsoft has always been a little bit of a challenge, I think. And so this is one of those things that you really scratch your head of how they came up with this. But the product is called Microsoft Teams. And within the Teams product, there is a component called Teams. And you'll see that when we get into the demo. And Teams is really, for a lot of people, for a lot of organizations, it's the main component that you're going to use, and you'll see why. But there's a calendar in Teams, and the good thing is that if you're using Microsoft Office 365 for your email and your calendaring and things, the calendar that's here is exactly the same calendar that's in your Outlook. So if you add an appointment or you add something in your Outlook calendar, it's going to show up in the Teams calendar. And if you add something in the Teams calendar, it's going to show up in your Outlook. There are some differences when you create meetings and things within Teams. There are some differences from when you try to create them in Outlook. The result is the same. You can create a Teams meeting in Outlook or in the Teams calendar, but you just have a little bit different functionality in the Teams calendar. You can do calls. In the context of Teams, calls are multiple things. So first of all, for instance, in our own office here, we can call each other using our laptops or our workstations, and we can do just plain audio calls. So it's not using your phones, it's just using the team system itself. So with audio calls, as long as you have a microphone, you can call each other and talk. You need to have a microphone and speakers, but you can call each other. And then you can extend that to also video calls. So we use this quite a bit here. We just want to communicate with one another. We just use a video call. The difference there is you need to have a webcam, the microphone, and the speakers. But that's all internal to your Teams environment. So if while we're in the office here, we can all be using those types of calls. But also, if we're outside of the office, we can, if we're working from home, we can actually just join those calls, the audio calls, video calls, just like we're in the office. It doesn't matter as long as you have the proper hardware to do it. So you can do calls, and then also, Microsoft has built an environment so that you can plug regular PBX or what we would think as traditional phone calls. You can plug phone systems into Teams, and your Teams environment can become your phone system. We're not going to get heavy into that today, but just be aware you can, like I have a Teams phone on my desk, and I can receive and make calls that actually go out across the regular phone lines, or really nowadays it's mostly VoIP, cloud-based phone lines. But it's the same. You're making calls like you would with your regular phone. There's a files section, and we're going to get into defining how Teams are laid out and this and that. But you'll see you can store files in various places within Teams. We can do virtual meetings. So you can set up and schedule a meeting with your whole team if you wanted to. If you have recurring meetings, you could do those things. But you can also set up virtual meetings with anyone, either inside your organization, outside, or any combination of. There are controls in Teams. There's a lot of security controls. So by default, you can't necessarily connect to people outside your organization, but that can be turned on. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the actual Teams module. And then there's more. What I mean by more is there's Teams is built so that it's kind of fluid. You can add things to Teams, and you'll see when I show you my team layout that we've added some components into Teams. But those components are almost on a daily basis. There's more and more companies that are adding or creating plugins that you can add into your Teams environment. So some considerations about Teams. First of all, it's secure and compliant. All of the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 components are all secure and compliant. They meet several different compliance requirements. There's a whole website of information on what compliance they meet. So if you're in a healthcare environment, you need to meet HIPAA. It's HIPAA compliant, and they will provide a In the case of healthcare, they'll provide a business associates agreement. It's also NIST, various NIST compliance. There's a whole slew of different compliance that they meet. Now, compliance doesn't mean that out of the box necessarily it's fully compliant. There's a lot of security settings in Office 365 and specifically in Teams when you're doing files, etc., that can be adjusted. So we need to make sure that if you are under some type of compliance, that those compliance settings are set properly for your environment. You can collaborate in Teams. Pretty much that's what Teams is. It's a collaboration environment. The base reason for Teams is collaboration. It's easy to use. You'll see when we go in, it's really easy to use. There's 3 different methods that you can access Teams. So you can use your desktop or your laptop using an actual app. There's a Team app or a Teams app. You can get in through the web, meaning if you log into your Office 365 account on the web, you can get into your Word, your Outlook, all of that stuff, SharePoint, whatever, OneDrive. There's also an app there for Teams, and it's the same information. You're connecting to the same data as if you were using the desktop app. And then there's also the mobile app that will for both Android and iPhones, both phones, tablets, etc. And again, it's the same data. So, and you can, for the most part, there are differences. I mean, especially with the mobile app, you have a smaller screen on your phone or whatever, but all of the data is there. And if you wanted to schedule a meeting, you can schedule it from your phone. If you wanted to work on a document, you can do that through a phone. I use it in that fashion, but I mostly use looking at documents or whatever as a view. I can edit them, but really in the smaller screen, it's kind of difficult to do unless it's minor edits that you need to do. But I can participate in all of the chats. I can look and see what's going on, and I can put my comments in the chats, etc. You can include external team members. Again, this is some setup. It's simple, but it just needs to be set up so that you can allow external team members to be part of your team. So, for instance, I have a team. One of the teams that I have in our organization, I'm the only person in system support group that's in the team. Everyone else in the team is an external member. So you can see how that you can either have one person in a team of 10 people that's have one person that's external. You could have 2, you could have 5. In my case, I have one I'm the only internal one. External team members do have some limitations, but they can pretty much participate pretty well within the team. There are some limitations relative to security and things that when you see them, you would understand why they're set up that way. It's customizable both by the organization and by the individual user, and we'll see that when we go in and see the live demo. And it integrates with the other Office 365 components. The most obvious is your files. So files that are stored in Teams are actually stored in one of 2 places. Most of the files in Teams are stored in SharePoint, which is an Office 365 app. For most users, you don't really care about where they're stored, but from the technical standpoint, they're stored in SharePoint. And SharePoint has been around for years and years at this point, and it's a pretty good file storage, and we'll see some things related to that. We're not going to get deep into SharePoint today, but SharePoint is more than just file storage. But relative to Teams, the files are stored there. The other place that some files can be stored within Teams is in OneDrive. So if you have a chat with someone, whether it be one-to-one or one-to-many chat, and you can actually bring a file into that chat. And if you do, that file is stored in OneDrive. So all of the files that are stored generally for the teams are stored in SharePoint, and the files that are stored in individual chats are stored in OneDrive. And then there's other, a lot more considerations to look at, and we'll see that when we get into the demo. This slide really, I think, highlights how much Teams has grown in the last year and a half. If we look at March of 2020, these are millions of daily users. Teams had 32 million daily users, and actually this chart goes back even into 2019, and you can see a little bit of it there. It was not even, it was like closer to 25, 26 million. But slowly from March of 2020, I don't know if I would call it slowly, but from March 2020, if you just look at March 12th through April 30th, which is 2 months, not even 2 months, it's doubled. It more than doubled. And then by October, it got to 115 million. And then in April of this year, they're at 145 million users a day using Microsoft Teams. And actually, that number now is I forget what the actual number is, but I want to say it's around 165 to 170 at the moment. So it's growing exponentially. It really, and I think what happened, obviously, COVID had something to do with that. But also, as people, sometimes Teams was set up, and for some companies, it's still this way. It was set up just for the chat features because it's a secure chat, it's a persistent chat, so all the data is maintained. But once somebody starts using Teams, once organizations start using Teams, what I find is at first they have a particular reason. So a lot of it during COVID was just simply the chat features. But then they started realizing, well, wait, we can share documents here. Oh, we can schedule meetings here. So we can pretty much run our daily business life right within Teams. And that's kind of one of the goals that Microsoft has, is you will live in Teams throughout your day because you can get to all your applications and everything right from Teams, your schedules, everything. So I think what I've seen with organizations I've worked with is that once they get started, sometimes it's a slow process, but then all of a sudden it's like the light comes on and everyone starts realizing we can do this or that, and it just grows the same way this chart grows in usage. It's pretty much almost the same thing that I see with companies that are using Teams. Of course, some of it depends on the size of your organization and your people and everything else, but I do see that happening. Okay, so we're gonna take a look here at my live stuff. So as I said early on, I'm doing this by myself, and I've got a lot of levers to pull when I'm doing these things. So at least the screen hopefully changed. It changed for me, so it should have changed for you. Again, as we go along here, if you have questions, you can use the chat function, and I'll try to answer questions as we go. So this is kind of what Teams looks like, and the layout is that on the left-hand side are your various modules, and out of the box you have activity module. We'll talk about each of these, but you have activity, you have chat, you have the Teams module that I was saying is a little confusing because the product is Teams, and then there's also a Teams module. It kind of makes sense, but then you have a calendar. Here's your calls. There's files. This is one way that you get to your files. And then these last two items on the left here on my Teams, which is tasks and something called clip training. These are things that I've added to my own Teams application. They're just plugins that can plug in. And what you can do is you click this little 3 dots here, and you have all these various things you can plug in. And if I click on more apps, you'll see the whole screen will fill up and there'll be multiple pages. So there's all kinds of plugins. So if you use I don't know, Survey Sparrow. If you use that app, they actually have a plugin, and you can plug it in, and you'll have access to your stuff right here from within Teams. At the top of the screen right now, because we're doing the meeting, I set a status, or throughout the day, actually, I set statuses so that people are, if they're trying to get a hold of me, they can see what my status. And the status right now says "Do not disturb," and I basically told everyone I'm doing a webinar, and you can't call me, you can't bug me, you know. So again, this can be useful if you have a company where you have multiple locations, or you have people working from home, or a combination of both. So it's very easy to control, let everybody know what your status is. Now, what activities is, we'll get back to that at the end because I think it makes it more sense. But activity is all of your activities. So you see right now there's a red 2 here. That means that since I looked at this the last time, I've got 2 things, and in this case, these are basically messages that we get. We follow the status of Microsoft Office 365 to know if it's up or down or what kind of problems they have. So they, in the last not even an hour, there's been 2 messages from Microsoft talking about issues. But the activity feed is pretty much all activity that you have that you haven't looked at. Chat is this is the chat module. So as we said, we can do one-on-one chats. So if I wanted to chat with Olivia here, I would just select her. She's on vacation, so I can't really chat with her. Although often she will respond anyway. But I can start a chat here and talk to her. It's persistent. So all of the chats that we worked on, that we've done are here. When you do chats, let's see. This was one of my guys who was on site yesterday, and he wanted to send me, we're looking for a battery for a headset for a client. And he just took a picture of it and sent it over in the chat. And then I was able to get the part number off of it and get it ordered. So when you're doing chats, you can do different types of things. You can just do regular text-based chats, but you can also, you have the ability to change, just like if you were doing Word or any other text editor. You can use bold, italics, and different things here. You can make the chat be important. Now, there's a little difference here. They've added a new, about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, they added a new function here. Similar to anything else that you do, you have standards. So you send an email out and it's just standard status. But then you have an important, and that would just put an exclamation, in this case, on your chat statement, okay? But then you have urgent. And what happens if you name it urgent is the recipient will be pinged every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. They put this in here mostly for healthcare people. So if you're trying to get a hold of a nurse or a doctor, if you mark it urgent, their phone or their computer, laptop, tablet, whatever they carry around with them, is going to be bugging them every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. You can also attach files, or in this case, a photo. You can do emojis, and they just added a whole slew of more emojis recently. So you got all the emojis. Everybody's got to have emojis, I guess. You have GIFs, and you can search. You have what's called praise. I think this is the praise one. Let's see. Yeah, so you can praise people during through in the chat. You can actually schedule a meeting. So right now, this is a chat with Deo. If I click schedule a meeting, it will schedule a meeting between he and I. It'll schedule a Teams meeting between the 2 of us, and we can select the date and time, and it will, be on both of our calendars. So sometimes you're chatting with people, and you might say, "Well, let's get together and talk about that." And so what you do is you schedule a meeting right while you're chatting. Stream, we're not going to get into it today because it's actually going to change. But Stream is for video. You can actually connect to a video. One of the modules in Office 365 is called Stream, and it's almost like YouTube for your own organization. It's not going away, but it's going to change a little bit. Oh, this is the praise. These must be just banners. This is praise. Approvals. They've recently added within the last couple months, and if you guys already have Teams, and if you may already be using it, you might see things in my Teams that you don't have yet. But unless you're in the government version of Teams, you'll see them pretty quickly. We get things a little bit earlier than everyone else. Not a lot, but a little bit earlier. So approvals are in here. So right, it's really brand new. So it's a little basic. Like I can say I need your approval on this document, and whoever I've set up as the approver will get the message, and they can approve the document, and then we can go on to whatever we want to do. Or I need approval to sell something, or I need approval. So you're going to do it right through here, and it works very well. But I can see that they're already, with some of the things they're talking about doing with approvals, it's going to expand a lot more from where it's at. And then, so in my case, I added the weather function. Okay, so if I click the weather here, I guess I'll be boring and just put my own zip code in. Now I can add that weather. Now, sometimes people, why you need that? Well, if you're working with a team that has salespeople that might be around the country, and they're trying, they need to go somewhere or something, you can check, you can display what the weather is. Now, as I said, this was an add-on. So is the last one here. This is news, and you can bring up a news item or something if you wanted to discuss it during your chat. But those items are actually approvals as well. These are added, and I can add them again, just like on the left-hand side. I would click the three dots here, and I get the various things that I can add, and I can click more apps, and there'll be more. So it's just something that just realize we're in a one-to-one chat here. So we're adding whatever context that we want in this chat. Now we can also do one-to-many chats. So this one up at the top left here, it says all text. This is what we all use here all day long. And you'll see silly stuff. Like I'm back at my desk. I'm going to lunch. Now, that kind of stuff, when we were working, we were working from home for a while as well. And that kind of stuff really can be very helpful because I can't see that Olivia went to lunch. I can't see that she's back. So we tried to keep up to date with each other that way. And if we have questions about a client or questions about a ticket or something, we do it all through here. So in that case, that's everyone that posts in here. It's posting to all of our text. It's not posting to everyone. I create a group for text, and so it's just all of the technical people. I have connections to external people. This Dan Lebrecht here, he's in a different company, but we do a lot of work with him, and we can communicate directly. Okay, and Sherry Lynn, she chatted in our meeting, so that shows up here as well. We can close these chats out. We can do different things with them. Okay, so that's kind of chat. Now, the other thing about this chat screen is at the top here, we're in the chat function. If during this chat, any one of us has put files in, we would see those files over here. So somebody must have put a video in here of some sort at some point. So right now, we have chat and files as far as, like, we call them tabs. Okay. We can add other things here if we want. Now, in the chat section, they're really, it's this makes more sense, I think, in the Teams module when we get to that. But realistically, in the chat, if we want to know about something, always within this chat, in this all text team, or not team, but a group chat, we could add these modules. So if we had a PowerPoint presentation that I just wanted to have available to everyone all the time, I would click PowerPoint here. I would select the PowerPoint that I want, and it would show up as what, again, we call them tabs, as a tab up here. So if anybody clicked on that, either in the case of the PowerPoint presentation would come up, or maybe we have some type of a document that has either rules or whatever we want, rules for the chats. Okay. We could have that document be always available at the top. And it would, when you clicked, it would actually open the document. You don't have to open it. And then over to the right of that, we were talking before about I can do a video call. So if I wanted to do a video call for, in this case, it's all text, I would just click this, and everyone in this chat right now would get a little banner that popped up and said Ed wants to do a video call, and they could join using video, or if they didn't want to use the video, they could just join with audio, or I could start with it just being an audio call. So you can do that right from here. I can also share the screen. So if we're talking about something and I want to show these guys, everyone in this group here, something, maybe a new thing in Teams or a new whatever, I can just click here, share the screen, and everybody that's currently in this chat will see my screen. We'll be able to see it. Okay, and then you can see the members of the team, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what chat is, very briefly. It's very powerful, and it's used all the time. Like I said before, in some cases, companies use Teams just for the chat features. Teams themselves. So teams are groups of people, all right, as we said earlier. So these are the teams that I'm in. I'm gonna minimize them. So right now I have 4 teams that we're displaying here that I'm a member of. Okay, and then at the top, these are just teams that I've pinned, as you see here, pinned to the top. So all of, some companies, I'm working with a company right now that have 280 teams or something like that. Not everyone is in all the teams, but nonetheless, you can have a lot of teams. So if there's ones, normally there's ones that you interact with all the time, you can just pin them to the top. So the way teams are laid out is this is the team itself. Then underneath the team, we have what we call channels. And really, channels are more or less discussion groups. It's like a subject that you're constantly using. So in this SSGI team, which is our main team here, we have this channel called General. When you create a new team, every team has a channel called General. You can't not have it. Companies use it for different things, but it's a regular channel, but it's just called General. Under there, all of these teams that we've created are channels that we've created are just that. They're channels that we created. So we have one here for client information. We have one for, this is our ticketing system. When we were doing COVID-19, when that happened, I created a channel in here so that we could all discuss our information, and I could tell people what our rules are going to be, and how when they change, etc. Document management is just for us a channel that we use to discuss how we want to lay out our documents and where we should put things, etc. We have an HR channel, an inventory channel, all of these various things. Okay. This one that's highlighted, what that's telling me is that there's something in that particular channel that I haven't seen yet. That this channel is actually has data coming in from a Twitter account. Okay. So when these new things come in, it's not even coming in from us. I have a feed coming in here from Twitter. And again, it's to help us keep up with what's going on. Now, what I want to show you though, while I'm in here, is when you're in a channel, each one of these channels has a toolbar at the top. Okay, and these, again, we have the tabs. So the posts part, it's just like having a chat, except for these are discussions that we're having, and I'll get to that in a second. These are files that are stored specifically for this channel. If I click, I don't think there's anything in this one. Well, oh yeah, there's one. There's a PowerPoint in here. So any files that we store for this channel are stored in the team and in this channel under files. In this case, we've added these three things here. OneNote for those of you that have Office 365 now. There's a product in Office 365, and actually it's been around for a while, called OneNote. Great product. If you don't use it, you should really look at using it. But in this case, what I did was I added a OneNote notebook to this channel. So anyone that has access to this channel can now, view the OneNote notebook, add things to the notebook, etc. Another module that is part of Microsoft Teams is something called Microsoft Planner. I'm going to do another webinar on that probably within the next month or two. I've got several coming up. But Planner it's like a little project planner. And I've created a plan for this particular channel. In this case, we don't use this one a lot, so there's not a lot in there. But these are separate products that we just plugged into Teams. So if you might be using other applications that in this channel will be useful to have the information. And then this one here is probably a document. Yeah. So this is a PowerPoint with some slides in it that I took for that when they changed the name to Microsoft 365. There's also some changes in what you get and that kind of stuff. So I added it here so anyone in this channel can have access to that information. If I go to a different channel, you see I have different chat. In this case, I do have files, but I don't have anything else up here because I just didn't put anything in there yet. Didn't have a need for it or anything. So as you can see in here, this top part, when I make changes to this, everyone in the team sees those changes. So if I add a tab, everyone in the team sees the tab. On this side, on the left side, if I add something here, that's for my own, and each person can add their own. A administrator can make it so that something gets added and it will show up for everyone, but by default it doesn't. There's a lot more to discuss in Teams, the Teams component here, but for the overview today, we don't have a lot of time to go through them. One thing I would mention about Teams, though, is there's two types of teams. There's public teams that you can create, and what public means is anyone in your organization can see the team and ask to join the team. So again, maybe you have a team for company events, and then you'll have channels for, maybe the holidays or whatever. Maybe you have special retreats or whatever. You can have channels for those, and those channels can have the agenda for the items. They can have the information about the location with pictures and maps and all that stuff. So each one of the teams that you create is either going to be public, which anyone can see and join. Well, they have to ask to join, or they can be private. So if you have a private team, what that means is that when the team is created, the owner of the team, the person that creates it, can say, I want these 6 people. And they're the only ones that would be part of the team. No one else will see the team. I can still invite other people and I can remove people, but no one sees that team. It's a private team. There's also recently an added function because the whole concept of Teams here is everyone in this SSGI team has access to everything in every one of these channels. Okay, that's an important concept to realize. Everyone in the team by default has access to everything in the team. Okay, which is, that's normally what you want. Now, recently they've added something called private channels where you can create a channel within a team and that can be private. And the way that works is, let's say I have 10 people in my team and I'm going to create this HR channel here, I'm going to make it private, and I only want 3 of those 10 people to be in it. So I create the private channel, invite those 3 people to it, and they're the only ones. Even though others in the team are there, they wouldn't be able to get into that particular channel. The key there is those people that are invited have to be already part of the team. Okay. So those are some little things that I've added. When on any one of these teams, I can click on it, I can hide the team, I can manage it, which allows me to add people and do a bunch of other things. I can add a channel, add a member, I can leave the team, I can edit the team, do all different types of things here. Again, we don't have enough time to go really in detail. And I, again, future webinar, I do go into great detail with this stuff. Calendar. So as I mentioned before, this calendar looks exactly like my Outlook calendar. All right. And if I want to create a new meeting, I can click here and now I can add the title of my meeting, the dates and the times, maybe my agenda. If I wanted this meeting to be for one of my channels so that everyone in the channel can attend it, I would just add the channel name here. Okay. So I go into whatever team I want and pick, I'm going to create a meeting in the blogs channel. All right. I pick this here. Everyone in that team would see that meeting is there. Okay. Now, one thing that they've added recently, there used to be 2 different types of meetings, a regular scheduled meeting, which is what I just showed you. Then there was something called live event, and there still is live event. What live event is for is similar to what we're doing right now, except for it's much more of a production. You actually have a producer. These are titles or functions within the live event. You have a producer, you have the host, you have the presenters, you have a group of, and it's kind of managed. Like if you've seen any of the Microsoft stuff recently, presentations and things, they're probably using live event if it was a scheduled event. And you can, you have a producer that switches between the hosts. So one person's talking and then all of a sudden somebody else is going to do something. You switch back and forth. So that's always been in there. What has recently been added is webinar. And what webinar does is you're all kind of familiar with it at this point, because when I created this, I created a webinar. It actually automatically will send out, if you desire, the registration form, and it keeps track of all of the registrants and who attended, all of that stuff, all for you. Really nice. Again, it's new, so there's a lot of stuff, and if you're not careful, you could screw it up. Like I promised, I don't know if any of you looked at the invitation, but I was notified that the invitation for today says it starts at 9 and ends at 10 p.m. I promise that's not the case. So anyway, that's the calendar, and calendar is again, it is the same calendar as you see in Outlook. In Outlook, you can create Teams meetings, and in Teams you can create meetings, but they're most always actually Teams meetings. It doesn't mean you have to have a Teams meeting, but that's what the actual object will be created as a Teams meeting. From here, I could also say meet now. And if I say meet now, it just asks me who do I want to meet with. Okay. Calls. This one we'll go through kind of quickly, but calls are so these are what we call speed dial. So if I wanted to talk to John, I can video call him, I can audio call him, I can chat with him, I can remove it. So right from here, I can do a bunch of stuff. One thing that was announced last week, and some of you might have heard about it or not, is that Windows 11 is going to be coming out to the public October-ish, somewhere around October. One of the things that Windows 11 has is they're actually building Teams into the operating system. So at the bottom of your screen, when you have Windows 11, there'll be a few changes, but there'll be a button that will actually bring up something similar to this speed dial. So right from the operating system, you'll be able to click and make a call, make a video call, chat with someone right from there. Now, in my case, I actually have a phone number. This is an add-on, but you can actually have a phone number. I have a phone number. I can, because I have a phone number, people can call me, and I can call out across regular phone lines. Okay. So calls, the word call is a little different in Teams context, because call could be, yes, if you have the phone stuff, you can actually make phone calls. But calls are also the video calls, the audio calls that you would make right through your system. Okay. Now, in files, I have two different things, or several actually different things. One is these are files that are in, now this is my Microsoft Teams. So these are my files, or files that I have access to within my Teams. So if I click here, it might take a minute, but these are all of the various files that I have in Microsoft Teams, and there's pages and pages of them, so I'm not gonna. But I also have access to my own OneDrive. So if I use my OneDrive quite a bit. So if I want to get some files out of OneDrive, I click there, and this is my OneDrive. This is my company OneDrive right here. And I can go in and get files for whatever I want, and I can bring those into Teams. If we go, let's go back into a team here. We go back into a channel. Let's see what I think we had some files here. So if I click in files in this particular channel here, there's no files here right now, but I can create files. I can upload files from either my computer or from OneDrive or some other SharePoint location. I can sync the files to my machine. I can copy links, download stuff from the files to my machine. But I can also drag and drop. So if I have another window opened up to my, I don't know, my OneDrive folder in my OneDrive, I could grab a file or a whole folder and just drag it in. Recently added in the last few months is if I have a file that's an attachment in an email, I can, right from the email, drag that attachment over and drop it into a team. In addition to, um, in the email itself, so I get an email from somebody and I want a particular team to review the email. I can in Outlook now, if you have this set up, there's a button in Outlook to send to teams. So when you have an email open and I want to send it over to the team, I just click that button. It'll ask me what team and what channel, and it will show up in the conversation in the posts section of that team, so that everyone could, maybe we got an email regarding a security issue or something, and I want everyone to see it. I can send it over there. And then when it's in there, it becomes a separate discussion topic, and we can discuss, whatever we need to. Now, as I said, I've also added here a couple of my own buttons. I use Planner and I use To-Do List, and what that does is it actually brings over this. I can plug that into my team. So if I click here, hopefully you won't see too many red things here. But these are if people are familiar using To-Do List, these are my lists in To-Do. Also, if you're familiar with Planner, these particular teams have planner plans in them, and I can access all my tasks that are due out of those plans. We also offer a product as well called Clip Training to our clients. This might take me a second because dual factor. Let's see, or it might not. Well, I'm not going to take up too much time here. But what Clip Training is, it's a training module, and you can plug it in. And what it does is managers can assign training to their staff, and the managers can keep track of who's doing the training, who's completed the training, all of that, how much time they've spent with the training, all of that kind of stuff. Pretty neat little module and pretty inexpensive. And there's already pre-defined training lessons in there for all of the Office 365 products, for Teams, for security, for a bunch of things. And you can actually add your own channel as a company So if you do your own training videos and you want to include them in there, you can add your own channel and store all of your own. And you can, again, you can make it be part of the required training, etc. So that's kind of Teams in a nutshell, in a very quick nutshell. There's a lot in Teams. Teams is very powerful. Let me switch back here. So Teams is very powerful, and as you saw in the chart there, over the last year and a half or so, it's really taken off. It was there before, although I would say this: I would say in the last year and a half, Microsoft has realized the need has changed a little because of work from home and all of that, and they've really made a lot of um, updates to Teams. They add or change things at least every 2 weeks. They add features, and a lot of those features, like when they added webinars, those are pretty good things to be able to have as part of your teams. But they've added all kinds of other functionality over the last year and a half, and there's a whole list of things that they're continuing to add now. Um, so it's a really great product. Issues that we've run into with companies. So my advice would be for as relative to best practices is first of all play around with it a little bit in a kind of a closed environment. Take a few people and create a team and play around with it so you get used to it. And that's true of most technology actually. But the other thing about it is you got to be careful. There's something now that we're calling Teams Sprawl. Um, I'm working as CIO for several companies, and when I get hired, I go in and check out, what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I see at every single one is what I call Teams Sprawl. And what that means is we've created teams for everything and we haven't managed it. So therefore, we have 200 teams, and out of the 200, 190 of them are not even useful. They're junk. So that's kind of consistent across companies. It doesn't matter if you're a smaller company, larger company. Maybe the size matters a little bit more as far as numbers of teams, but it's the same thing because people will, they want to play around. So they'll say, let me create this team. And I'll see teams with the name of Q, and it's like, well, what is this? But so you need to, I think companies need to be aware of that up front and just try to manage that. And for me, it really is communications. There are some technical things that you can do to prevent people from creating teams, and then you just allow certain people to do it. But there's some byproducts out of those things that are not good. So the best thing that you can do is just communicate with your organization and say, we need to manage this. And if you want to create a team, go through either IT or however, whatever kind of process that you have. I've been setting up for a lot of our clients. We have a team for IT, not for the IT team, but for the organization. And then there's channels in there for different things. There might be lots of times we'll put a channel for documents, and in there we use the Microsoft Forms app that comes with Office 365, and we create a form, and that form the employees can click on that form or click on the link to the form, and the form is a request to create a team, and you got a bunch of questions in there. What's the name of the team? What do you need it for? Et cetera, et cetera. So that way, at least you can manage it. The other thing with teams is just to get a good understanding. One of the other kind of major thing that I see is people have this feeling they don't know where their documents are. We're used to putting documents on a file server underneath some type of a folder and maybe another folder, and then that's where the document is. It really is the same way. And if your organization has been using SharePoint in the past, it will be a lot easier for people to transition or to be able to use Teams, because they kind of already understand the cloud based storage methodology. It's the same as if you get a server, really, but people just, it's a different thing. So people get a little concerned. Um, so that's another thing that we see. In reality, if people understand in each channel is where your documents are stored, then they don't have to worry about where. It just appears to them. They just click files in that channel. So if they go to HR channel and you click files, all of your HR files are in there, as opposed to going to the HR folder on your server and then finding all the files underneath there. It's the same thing. It's just a matter of different location. So it's already 5 minutes over, which I actually think I did a good job, because 5 minutes over on this product is not a lot. So I want to thank everyone for taking some time this morning. Hopefully you got a very fast, quick overview of what Teams is and what you can do with it. Next Friday, I'm going to do Teams meetings. And we're going to get into much more detail on Teams meetings and how to create Teams meetings, how to run them. We're going to talk about Teams room systems, so that you can have your conference room be a hub for your meetings, especially now where we're kind of in a hybrid mode where some people are still working from home and may work from home forever. We want them part of our meetings, and that's what Teams room systems allows them to do, is actually be a part of the meeting, not just call in and sit on the phone listening to what everyone talking. You're actually going to be part of the meeting with Teams room systems. So with that, I'll check the questions. I don't see anything in here. So once again, I thank everyone for being here, and have a great holiday weekend. Thanks.